I'd like to call to order the City of Littleton City Council virtual study session for Tuesday, November 10, 2020. The time now is 6:30 or 18:30. Let's see, we are missing two council members at the moment, Council Member Driscoll and Council Member, who are we missing? Oh, Elrod. We do expect Council Member Elrod to join us just a little bit late, but she'll be here. Tonight, Council, we have three items on our agenda. The first item that we have quite a few of the members from the Next Generation Advisory Committee. Maybe the chairman will be able to tell us if they're all there. I see the Council Member Elrod has joined us. But our first item on our agenda tonight is the Next Generation Advisory Committee, ID number 20-280. And what we're here to, as many of you, or as all of you know, originally when we set up the Next Gen Advisory Committee, it did have a sunset on it that's coming up soon. So tonight we're going to discuss whether or not to continue the committee. And they do have a report for us tonight and a presentation of some sort, which we've had a chance to review. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the city manager.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council, and good evening, guests. I am going to immediately turn it over here to Ryan Thompson. He's our mediation program coordinator and community liaison. He's also been assigned here to the Next Generation Advisory Committee. I know we have a presentation teed up, and Ryan, I would ask that you make some introductions and go ahead and begin when you guys are ready.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Thank you, everybody, public who's listening. It is my great pleasure to introduce tonight members of the Next Generation Advisory Committee. And as Jerry, the Mayor, had mentioned, this was something that was created in 2018 with a 2-year sunset. And a couple of our members have been there since day one. First off, and to introduce this evening would be our chairperson, that's Iftin Abshir. Along with us this evening, we also have our two co-chairs, Alyssa Campbell and Josh Hall. As well, we've got some other members, and forgive me, I'm on point here and I don't have everybody's up, but I know Charlie's here, Ashley's here, Lydia, Jennifer, and the rest of the team. I couldn't be more proud of this group and the effort they've put in. You've had the opportunity to see some of the stuff that they've produced so far, and really they're just getting started. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Iftin and let them kind of start the show. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that, Ryan. And thank you so much, Council, for having us come in this evening. We're very excited to have this opportunity to chat with you and give you a little bit of an update of what we've been doing and what we have planned for the future. Like I said, I am the chair of the Next Generation Advisory Committee. It's been my great honor to serve as chair both last year and then again as vice chair for a brief moment and then as chair again for this year. I cannot tell you how proud I am of everyone for the work that they've put in. And so now I'm actually going to hand it over to Joshua Hall and Alyssa Campbell, who are our co-vice chairs. They, along with our secretary, Charlie Ottersberg, have created this fantastic presentation for you. And then after that, I will go ahead and talk through the work plan items that we have for coming up for the rest of 2020 as well as 2021. And then we'll kind of move into some questions from there. So go ahead and take it away, Josh and Alyssa.
All right, again, thank you, Council, so much for having us sit in on your study session tonight. We're super grateful to be a part of this great city and be able to lend our voice. All of our members here at the Next Generation Advisory Committee are very committed to the mission that has been described and outlined by Council in the original charter. And we have been consistently working to support Council agenda items with this lens provided in the mission, and specifically with the attracting and retaining of young residents and employees in the city. And we hope to continue to provide written feedback on these such agenda items.
And for our goals as we look to what we're looking to accomplish next year and kind of beyond, looking to for the insights ultimately from the 16 to 36-year-old range, that's what our group is made up of. explore topics important to young professionals, specifically when it has to do with education, employment, economic opportunity, their local government services, what we offer, what the city offers, housing and environmental and sustainability projects, and the city plan with the Envision plan and everything as we move forward here.
In 2020, we did focus on restructuring this committee to help retain a lot of our committee members. One of the main focuses is we wanted to promote accountability on individual projects, and we did that through the creation of our subcommittees. Each subcommittee, which Josh will talk about next, was focused on a central theme that each member would be a little bit more devoted to and interested in, to provide a lens of feedback in regards to the Envision plan. And in this restructuring, it also included the rapid and quick adjustment to the COVID requirements by moving all of our meetings and our recruitment process to the telecommunication platforms.
And the subcommittees that Alyssa mentioned, so we wanted to say we came together and wanted to focus on kind of three big items that are coming up with the Envision plan. One of those things is the sustainability and how that's working into that plan, zoning and the ULUC code, and also diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging, as that's become more of a focus in the past few years, but something we definitely want to make sure that the city is aware of and something that we work to add into our feedback to the city.
I want to talk a little bit about the accomplishments that we've done so far this year, some of which you are aware of since we submitted written reports. But one of our main focuses was maintaining the open lines of communication with this telecommunications transition and helping to ensure our members are connected and comfortable using these online platforms to help accomplish and focus on the goals and the mission of the committee. Back in July, upon the release of the Unified Land Use Code, our zoning and sustainability subcommittees were able to focus and read through the document, and we were able to combine the input of all of our subcommittee members into 2 feedback documents that were provided to council. The committee was focused and wanted to ensure that both the positive feedback and the constructive feedback were communicated through those documents. Next Generation also formulated a formal response to the weekends on Main based on an inquiry list from council. This response pointed to possible COVID concerns and also remedies, along with positive feedback regarding the positive impact on community involvement that we found in the weekends on Main. We also wrote a letter in support of Bemis Library based on passion projects, as the NJC really wants to reinforce that there's numerous public services that are provided through Bemis, and just wanted to lend our voice to support in that.
Some of our 2021 goals as we look to the next year, we want to really define the leadership responsibilities, create kind of a handbook for those who are in the leadership committee to keep that going. We want to use our incumbent members to actively recruit new members, provide more perspective on council agenda items, voter outreach for the city elections. As we know, local elections tend to see a little bit less of a turnout. We want to make sure that we're a part of making that a bigger turnout if possible, as well as reporting on the micro mobility transportation and its future in Littleton, as that's a big topic that's coming up for council in the near future.
And to help us accomplish these 2021 goals, we are looking forward to continuing past 2020 and into this next year. And we do want to have a closer partnership with council and staff, and would like to suggest holding an annual meeting with council and a biannual meeting with city staff. Both of these items, along with a list of initiatives from council for the year, along with continued feedback, will help provide us direction to provide comments on matters that council is going to be addressing throughout the year. We also propose that interviews for the committee be included in the regular committee interview process in April, just helping align us with the consistency in the recruitment process and help everything be a little bit more streamlined as we move forward.
And we just want to say thank you again for the opportunity to come and present to you. thank you for the opportunity you've given us to really go throughout these past couple of years and be a part of something in the city. And we look forward to a continued partnership with the city and the council. We do have an opportunity for questions after Ifton gives her presentation. So I'll invite her now to go ahead and talk about the work plan.
Thank you so much, Josh and Alyssa. I really appreciate it. So as Josh and Alyssa actually already pointed out in their presentation, we do have a number of ongoing and future items that we would like to accomplish. So you should have received in the council packet for your review our work plan, which we've generated for the 2020-2021 year. So with this work plan, our main focus was on continuing the NJC, or the generated mission statement that we created last year, which is NJC exists to represent, encourage, and engage emerging generations in the city of Littleton. And so that was sort of our main focus when we were crafting all of these work plan items. So the first item, so let me go talk a little bit about how we structure NJC, which I think will help you understand how we hope to accomplish these items. So we do have a monthly meeting, which is the first Thursday of the month. And then in addition to that, we did create the 3 subcommittees, which they meet again, either once a month or bi-monthly, depending on if we have a current project. And those meet, so the sustainability subcommittee meeting meets the second Monday after the NJC regular meeting. We have the zoning subcommittee meeting that meets the second Thursday, so that's coming up this week. And then we have the diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging subcommittee, which meets the last Thursday of the month. We found these subcommittees to be so helpful this last year in really organizing our members and energizing us to accomplish specific tasks that we have set forward with the committee. So for this work plan, we've created 6 items. 3 of those items are for the main NJC body, which encompasses all of the members. And then we've created 1 work plan item for each of the 3 subcommittees. So I'll just talk through very briefly all of the work plan items. And then of course, if you have questions, we'll be happy to talk about them further. So the first item on the work plan agenda is we would like to, like Alyssa mentioned, to be included in the regular boards and commissions recruitment process, which begins, of course, in December and then has interviews starting at the beginning of the year and then have new members join in April. This will significantly cut down on the staff time required to recruit new members as well as interview them. But in addition to that, we would again like to be involved in the recruitment process. We did this last year as one of our accomplished work plan items, and it was very successful. We have amazing members that joined, and they're very dedicated and committed. So I think having that personal connection to membership and enrollment is very important, I think, especially for this subcommittee, which is a very niche age range and demographic within the city. So the second work plan item, again, is to continue to provide well-written, well-researched, and thoughtful responses to City Council agenda items and provide feedback to Council and the city staff. So we have 3 ongoing projects currently. As Josh mentioned, we are doing the project on micromobility. So that includes, e-scooters and e-bicycles. We've talked in length about some of the pros and cons and what we would like to see happen in the city. We are working, of course, with Keith Reister and City Works, in Public Works, to determine what kind of feedback will be most appropriate and useful for staff. We also have an item to try to work on the Santa Fe Pell study. So this is a topic that we just started to discuss at the last meeting last week and for November. So that again is in process. We hope to provide some kind of feedback as a stakeholder in that project. And then finally, we, as a passion project, the entire organization would like to provide some kind of feedback on the homelessness in Littleton. I know we're still waiting on the Tri-County homelessness study. So once we have that, we'll be able to move forward and work on a plan to determine what we want to do with that. The next item is an agenda, or is a work plan item. So this is 2.2.3. This is going to be increasing involvement with next generation members and members within that 16 to 36 age range within existing City of Littleton events. So this, of course, will be contingent upon public health allowances and what will happen in the future. But we started this project last year, and of course with COVID had to kind of put it on hold. So we'd like to see if we can reassess this project in the summer because going back to that engage the emerging generations of Littleton, we hope to increase involvement both in city events as well as civic engagement for this age range. And so we hope to do that through this work plan item. The next work plan item, number 4, again, is that Get Out the Vote campaign for the 2021 municipal elections. Of course, this would be a nonpartisan election, just Get Out the Vote campaign to increase voter turnout, especially in that younger age range, as well as in different ethnic groups and diversity to let people know about how important it is to be involved with our municipal elections. Because it is so important. We're all here because we love the city of Littleton and we feel that local government is important. So we want to make sure that we're promoting that message within the wider community. And of course, that committee or that subcommittee goal was set forward by the Diversity and Inclusion Subcommittee. We had initially wanted to do a Get Out the Vote campaign for the 2020 election that happened, last week, but with the time limitations, that was not possible. So we decided to push that till next year and focus on the municipal level. Next, we have a zoning subcommittee topic. Now, this is 2.2.5, and this is to provide, this is zoning. So this is the feedback on the special overlay districts on Littleton Boulevard. So this is going hand in hand with the next phase of the ULUC rezoning. So this is going to be looking at the Littleton Boulevard mid-mod mile. We started having conversations. We had Jennifer Henninger come into our meeting a few months ago to provide some additional feedback. And then the zoning subcommittee has taken this topic and is really running with it to look at the creation of a mid-mod mile historic overlay district, or we've also floated the idea of a possible arts district, or to see what would be the most appropriate for that area to engage this younger generation in connecting with Littleton Boulevard. And then our final work plan item, number 6, this is the Powers Park Community Survey. So this is going to be a work plan item for the Sustainability Committee. So I believe many of you are aware that we have been approached by community partners, namely the South Metro Land Conservancy, as well as South Metro Housing Options on revitalizing the Powers Park area, which is an underserved park within the northeast portion of Littleton. And so in order to move forward with that project, we need some more information about how we can best utilize this space to really enhance the community. And so as members of the younger generation, less susceptible to health concerns, we would like to involve the members in creating a community survey to find out what would be the best for that particular community and for that park. Yes, so those are our 6 work plan items that we have planned. Of course, all of these are contingent on, again, public health regulations and what we can and cannot do. But I think these are 6 items that we very easily could contribute to the community and would be able to accomplish within the time frame set forth. So that is all that I have. I thank you again for having us come in to talk with us. And if you have questions, we're happy to open up the floor.
Great. Thank you very much, Ifton. And council, if you will, use the hand icon for your questions, or anybody else for that matter. Council, do we have any questions? Okay, we're going to wait a little bit. Councilmember Grove, did you want to add? I know that you have been working with this group. You've done a great job working with them. I really appreciate it. And I think this past year, more has been accomplished with this group than in the previous year. That is for doggone sure. So thank you for your guidance on that, as well as Ryan's. So Pam, would you like to go ahead and add something?
Well, I have really enjoyed working with this group. We have some knowledge from last year with the continuing members, and the new members have really come in gangbusters. They've produced quite a bit in a very short time. Their discussions are really lively, and it's been nice because they have some very loose parameters, a topic, micromobility, but then they take it in all different directions. And I think it's valuable for us to hear some really fresh ideas from this group of individuals. I've learned a lot from them. I think it's great for them to get engaged. We have a couple high school students. There's an opportunity for people to be exposed to the city, to learn about the city, see if they want to go on to be an elected official, see if they are interested in a career. So there's benefits, I think, to them that they can take away, as well as, what we get from them. As they age out, they might be interested in some other boards and commissions. So hopefully we can keep them engaged in the community. And I hope that tonight that we will be able to give direction to staff to continue this group on. I think it will help a lot that we will be able to incorporate them into the recruitment for the boards and commissions. Last year, we saw a lot of work being done as a one-off, especially in the midst of everything happening. And this way we can just include it along and fill any empty positions that we have. So really enjoyed it and hope.
Yes, correct, Mayor. I'd appreciate hearing from each council member if they would wish to advance this, remove the sunset clause. If that is the case, then staff would prepare a resolution to have the next generation committee here in perpetuity.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start with Council Member Grove. If you want to just give your thoughts on that, please.
I definitely would like them to continue on.
Great. All right. And we'll go to Council Member Fay.
Yes, I would like them to continue.
And Council Member Millerman.
Sorry, I keep fighting my cat who keeps wanting to get in the computer here.
The cat arrived early tonight.
I know, he did. A little too early. I'm really impressed with what everybody is doing with this committee, and I commend you all for, sounds like a lot of work that you've taken on, but it looks like a really fun, diverse group of people, and I'm super excited for you. What I would like to see, I don't know, I think I may be wrong what the original intent of this committee was when it was formed last year, but you're the voice of the future of this city. What I'm really interested in is as the younger generation, as the 18 to 30-year-olds, what would keep you in the city of Littleton? I know my son is just graduated from college. I have another daughter that's a year and a half from finishing college. And aside from, there's not a lot going on in Littleton. It's just, it's a suburb. But what kind of jobs do you think in the future would attract and keep people like yourselves in our city? What kind of entertainment? What kind of stores? What do we need to do to what can you tell us that we keep you here so that you could raise your families here, you could retire here, maybe you go away to college and then you come back. Why would you do that? That's what I'm really hoping to hear from this group. So anyway, thank you so much. I'll be quiet and go push my cat off the table again.
All right, I'm going to move on to Mayor Pro Tem Millen.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I absolutely want to see Next Gen continue in perpetuity. I think that they have made great strides recently in terms of stabilizing and expanding their membership, in terms of focusing their goals and their direction, and most important for me, in terms of generating work product that advises the city council. After all, they're an advisory committee, and I think that they have really produced a lot of quality research, a lot of quality written product recently that I, for one, have benefited a lot from as a council member. So I appreciate the hard work of everyone involved with Next Gen. Keep working hard at it, and certainly to Ryan, thanks for his leadership from the staff perspective, and certainly to Councilmember Grove for just really developing a passion for this and helping this group grow and come along. And of course, thanks to all the committee members. I think you all are doing great. Thanks so much.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Elrod, I skipped right over you.
Okay, just waiting my turn. So thank you everyone for participating tonight and sharing, what you're looking forward to next year as well. Reflecting back on the formation of this committee was in fact for us to ensure we're getting a voice from this age group, which historically we had not gotten in Littleton, and I think for many reasons we put effort behind this through developing this board, through different ways of outreach that we've done for Envision, et cetera. So I'm glad that not only are we seeing engagement here from the board, but also throughout the community. So glad to be there finally as a city, and thank you for being a part of that. One of the things that I do want to maybe reflect on or consider some of the initial concerns that we had when setting up this board was the maybe perception of authority by one group over another group that was based on age. So there was definitely sensitivity to the influence that this demographic may have versus another demographic. I don't know if that still exists or not. And I guess why I'm sharing that is I'm a little hesitant on the perpetuity clause, because the scope of this and the charter of NextGen was highly linked to our comprehensive plan process. So in the spirit of its initial intent and the reason why we felt so inclined to give that ability and influence of this group was tied to that work. So I guess I feel more supportive of this continuation in alignment with the work that we're continuing to do with the comprehensive plan in ULUC, so that again the stated intended purpose is still consistent with its formation. So I guess I'm not fully supportive of the perpetuity, but I am supportive of the group continuing, giving the efforts that we're going through at this time.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Elrod. And for me too, I do want to see the board continue. Like Councilmember Elrod, I'm not ready to remove or to add the continuing thing for ongoing as it is. I would like to see more coming out of the board. I think I am a little concerned about the board having to do its own recruiting. I do think that we've had some stability over this past year, which I think is fantastic. That's made a big difference. I think with the next year, it's going to be even more important. And maybe Mark or Sam, I think, is on the phone or on the meeting with us. They can talk to us a little bit more about the recruiting for new members. I do think the board has made a substantial step forward this past year. And Councilmember Grove and Ryan Thompson, I think you both have done a great job doing that. I think you have some great ideas in there, Ifton. Maybe I don't agree with all of them or not. That doesn't matter. But I think you have some great ideas in there. I think the other day, as you teased me with, was the micro mobility. I think as a council, we do want to hear some, at some point, we want to hear more about that. That's the kind of stuff that we're really hoping to get from this particular thing. And that might also be something, Ryan, that you may want to have them touch base with the transportation board on the mobility issues and even maybe traffic or something to that effect. So Mark, you do have city manager, you do have a consensus on continuing it. Will this come back to the council in a ordinance of some sort, or how is it going to come back to us?
You'll see it in a resolution. What I'm hearing is there is a majority in favor of continuing it in perpetuity. I think between now and next week, if the council wishes to consider some kind of amendment, then obviously staff can work with the council member interested. But we will draft it in perpetuity. I would also comment, maybe, Mayor, to your question. with this direction, then we would take the recruitment for this board like we would any other board or commission and roll it into the process. Council is going to get a briefing on this pretty quick here. Our real process for recruitment starts in December. And then ultimately the council's aware we do the interviews there in about the middle of February. So you'll get more detail and this board will be part of that regular process.
Great. And it seems to me, I think when we started this up, it was after the April date of all the other boards as they were getting started. All of our boards and commission take staff time to some degree, as well as this one. So the fact that this one is taking some staff time, Next Gen's taking staff time, they all take staff time to some degree. Mark, I think that's good. Come forward to us with some sort of resolution, and then council have a chance to digest it. We'll go with that.
Okay, very good. Thank you, council.
Great. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Council Member Millerman, you have something? Is the icon not working tonight? Kelly, test your icon to see if you can raise your hand.
I can see Kelly too.
I'm not seeing it for some reason. Maybe
Pam had her hand up.
Oh, it's my end. I'm sorry. It's on my end. I got it. Pam, you're up first.
Yep. A couple things. I think it would be great if we could do a really good job of giving Next Gen topics. I love Kelly's topic, and maybe that's something that we can do at the next meeting or the upcoming meetings, but more topics like that would be great. They're working to try to figure out what is relevant to us. So if we can make it a two-way street, great. Recruiting, just so you understand, last time they started recruiting after our interviews were done. Ryan had to go out on social media. They had to go to the colleges and the high schools and make flyers and all this work that was kind of a drain on their time. Now they can just supplement. Now they, as part of the recruiting process, this will go out with all the other boards and commissions, provided it's approved. And this way they can just ask their friends to apply for the open positions, or maybe they can a word of mouth or social media or something like that. So it makes it a lot more efficient. So hopefully that kind of helps understand recruitment. When we talk about sunsetting versus perpetuity, it has been difficult to kind of recruit and keep. I've been working kind of under a cloud this last 6 months, working to prove themselves. And I don't see that dropping any time, but it's like being on a situation at work where you're under a cloud. In other words, by 6 months, you have to produce so much. It's hard. I would like to see them be at parity with all the other boards and commissions and be able to go along and not have to worry about being sunset and go through this kind of proof again. So I would hope that we would allow them to continue in perpetuity. Like any board of commission, i.e. LIFT, if it's no longer relevant or if something's not working, council has the authority to discontinue it. So I would like to look at it that way instead of another 2 years or some sort of limited time. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And just to be clear, even if it is an ongoing board, like any other board, the council has the prerogative of dissolving any board. So it doesn't mean that it's there forever and a day. Council does have that control where they can eliminate any board. In fact, we're discussing some things now. We may be even combining some particular boards. We'll go with Council Member Millerman and then Elrod.
So I just wanted to confirm that I agree with Karina that I'm still kind of on the fence about this. And so I'm 50-50 right now. Again, I am so impressed with everything that you guys have been doing. But I really am impressed. But I think for me, I thought that this advisory board was formed with a different mission or path. And I feel like it's veered off of that way. And it seems like a lot of work for such a young group. But I'll go back and say again, I'm really hoping and excited to hear, if this group does keep going forward, what is important to you as a younger generation in trying to recruit, attract, keep vitalize the city for your age group. So thanks.
Great, thank you. Council Member Elrod.
I actually wanted to get clarification on the recruitment process. So what I did here is that it would go through the regular recruitment process. And I think that's a fantastic idea. And I think that really is the way we should go. What I maybe didn't hear was would the appointments be made by the council? So we would go through the process as we do for every other board, that council would be appointing that. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then just coming back to, Pam, I think, I totally can appreciate your comment of that need to kind of prove out the board. So just so you understand, and the board understands my position on this, it is not a case or a matter of having to prove your abilities. That is not what I am. And my request of it's not being in perpetuity is that I really want to tie it to a project. So as City Council right now, one of its key initiatives and projects is our ULUC, and that will go on for a couple of years more. That it's more tied to a project or initiative that is going on with the city, and each year or each couple of years we come back and say, okay, what's our next project, and is this something that we still need and require our next gen board to still be a part of? So it isn't about proving their ability, it is more about ensuring that we're, as a city and a council, still working on the things that are important to have the input from our next gen. So I think it's more of an onus on us to come back and say, okay, now here's where the next focus is and where we welcome your continued engagement.
Great, thank you. Committee Chair Ifton.
Yes, thank you so much. So a few things. Thank you, Council, for all of your feedback. I really appreciate it. Councilmember Millerman, I think your feedback is fantastic, and I think we could definitely incorporate some of those ideas into a future work plan item. And then I also wanted to just clarify a little bit to your point, Councilmember Elrod, about the recruitment. The only reason so if it does get rolled into the main boards and commissions recruitment, that's fantastic. We do have plans in place for new members being seated in April, a little transition and sort of new member orientation. But then the reason we kept this as a work plan item is because we are the Next Generation Advisory Committee for ages 16 to 36. And so we would like to, again, do more of that personal outreach to engage with this younger generation, as well as utilize social media a bit more than maybe the regular boards and commissions would. So that's our plan. Again, it's to supplement what the city will be doing to recruit.
Great, thank you very much. Ryan, how many total people did we authorize that we would eventually hope to assign to this committee?
It's available for up to 15 members.
Okay, and we're at 14 now?
I believe, Ifton, you correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're at 12. We had a couple resignations.
Okay.
But yeah, I believe we're a strong 12. I see Charlie nodding as well. 13,
actually.
okay.
Thank you. Well, and that could be something we could address going forward too. I think right now you have a good base of folks for the first time on this committee, and maybe as there's some natural nutrition there, maybe that's something we want to look at too. Is it the right size? Working especially on these Zoom meetings, they're not the most effective meetings in the world month after month. But congratulations. Next Gen, I think you're still afloat, and that's a good thing. I do think and I think as Councilmember Grove had mentioned, if council can eventually provide some topics or subjects that we would like to get some input on, so that the Next Gen can study them and address them and report back to the council with some advice or just information. It doesn't even have to be advice. It can just be information. I think that'd be great, because I think you have I think all of you are the right people that we have on there are committed to making this continue. So thank you very much. And thank you for taking the time out of your meeting or out of your evening. You're welcome to stay with us for the next exciting items that we have coming up. But you can also go. But
All
thank
right.
you very much. Do we have anything else, City Manager?
No, not on that topic. And again, thank you, Mayor and Council. And again, congratulations, next generation.
Yeah.
Thank you, folks. Have a good evening.
Yeah. Thank you all very much.
Thank you again.
All right. All right. It is 7:09. We're going to move on to our next topic, which is ID number 20-272. It's the ballot question 3A, the direct merit election results. And we're going to hear from our city attorney and city clerk on some things that we're going to just maybe need to do to clean some things up going forward. I think as I've talked to the city manager or city attorney and city manager, it doesn't appear as though anything is going to require any charter changes. I think as the city attorney has mentioned, it's all covered in there. We may need to kind of reword or redefine a few things, but it sounds like we're doing good. We just need a little bit of direction at council. So tonight, we're just going to hear from the city attorney and city clerk. I'll turn it over to the city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me pull this up.
Don't sound so excited. What the heck?
Oh, I'm trying to do two things at once, so it's challenging for me. Let me see here. Can you all see that?
I see it.
I don't know if it's showing the slideshow or if it's just...
It says it's your first page.
Okay. So obviously we're here to talk about a couple of the ballot initiatives that went to our city council or went to our registered electors within the city. The first being the direct elect mayor ballot results. The ballot question 3A was essentially, shall there be an amendment to the Littleton City Charter sections 1922 and 24, requiring the mayor and city council positions to be elected by the voters for 4-year terms? That was the ballot question. In terms of the results, it was pretty decisive. Over 80% of the registered voters within the city of Littleton voted in favor of the direct elect mayor position, with a little under 20% voting no. I would say in all 3 jurisdictions, and when I say jurisdictions, I mean counties, all over 80% in terms of the response from the Smattering and Douglas, as well as Jefferson and Arapahoe counties. Previously, just to kind of recap how the mayor was previously elected, every 2 years after every general municipal election, city council would vote amongst their own to find out who would be elected mayor. The same would happen thereafter for Mayor Pro Tem. Going forward, what will be happening starting next November is the voters will be allowed to elect the mayor, who will be serving a 4-year term. And the mayor is going to be elected at large, i.e. from the entire city. I've heard some questions. I've received some questions about some concerns that the mayor would not have to be a resident of the city of Littleton. That's not true. There's a couple of provisions within our city charter that does clarify that they do need to be a resident or a registered elector within the city to be mayor. So there's no concern about having someone from out of the city come in and qualify for that position. In terms of some of those questions, additionally, the mayor, this is not what is considered a strong mayor position. The mayor's powers aren't going to change under this. They're still kind of symbolically the head of the city in terms of signing a lot of the documents on behalf of council. They're just going to be elected for a 4-year term. So, they still have 1 vote, just like everyone else on city council. Going forward, in order to make this happen, we needed to change 3 sections within our city charter. As mentioned, 24, 22, and 19. I'll put them kind of in converse order because it's easier to explain. Section 24 needed to be changed to allow for the voters to directly elect the mayor rather than council. So that was just some charter changes that had to happen, which took council out from being the ones to elect the mayor to city council or to the registered electors. Section 22 of the city charter needed to be changed because we started talking about it wasn't including the mayor. And we had the issue where, and this is one of the changes that happens as a result. So at every general election in the city, we have typically had 4 members of council that can be replaced or are up for re-election. We have the 2 at-large positions that come up every 2 years, as well as 2 of the 4 district seats that come up. By making the mayor position a 4-year term, that means that it's going to be offset every other election. So presumably, if everything stays as envisioned for this next November, we're going to have 4 persons running for council. We'll have the 2 district seats, 1 and 3, as well as the at-large, as well as the mayor position. The following election, it's going to be 3. So it's going to be 1 at-large and then districts 2 and 4. So it's going to be kind of a 4-3, 4-3 type thing going forward, unless something unusual happens and we have, perhaps a council person, leaving the city or something that requires an additional vote to have to occur. Not sure if my screen's still changing here. There we go.
Yes, it is.
So the provision, the other change is that, for every general election, the council member who receives the second most at-large votes is given the 2-year term. In order to accomplish having a mayor that's direct elect for 4 years, we had to get rid of that second council person at large. So the 2-year term that currently council member Millerman, Mayor Pro Tem Millerman is serving, that would go away coming up this next November. Changes to Charter Section 19, just a little bit of cleanup to say that 2 would be elected at large and the mayor would be elected at large. So going forward, as you mentioned, Mayor, there probably are a few changes that need to be made. Specifically, council adopts its own legislative rules, which covers a lot of the policies and procedures of council. There is some language about how the mayor is elected within there. That's something that can be cleaned up. And perhaps within our policies and protocols, there's probably a couple things that need to be changed. So plenty of time to do that between now and November. I don't believe there are any things that require a special election or any charter revisions that need to occur, but certainly a few things that we may just need to do going forward that will have plenty of time. So didn't know if council had any specific questions. I know that you've probably heard from some of your constituents and they've expressed their concerns. So if there's any clarification that needs to be made, I got a few questions today, so I'll probably just read them out and respond to them. And if any other council member has any questions, then please feel free to throw them out there. So a question that I received was,
Great. If you could go ahead and take down the presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So one of the questions that I had received is a council member whose term isn't over with the upcoming election has served 2 of their 4-year term and who wants to run for mayor has to notify the city by July 1st. That's one of the changes that we made. Simply because we wanted to be able to advertise for that seat so that we wouldn't be left with a vacant seat if someone at the last minute decided, you know what, I want to be mayor. So because you've made it look so great in terms of all your responsibilities you have to do, Jerry. So that would be July 1st of every election year. Any council member with the remaining terms has to let the city know so that we can let other people who may be interested in that seat run. Whether a council member whose term is expiring with the election also needs to give city notice by July 1st that they're going to run for mayor. In that case, we don't, because we would already be advertising for that specific seat anyways, and that would already be open. The purpose is not to penalize anyone necessarily, just to make sure that we have enough time to let the residents of the city of Littleton know that we've got an opening coming up potentially. when a council member notifies the city of its intent to run for mayor, are they allowed to keep their seat until the new council is seated? So the answer to that would be yes, they would continue to serve in their capacity as a city council person for their respective district or at large until the council gets seated, which is typically, kind of the middle of November. A final question I have is, and I think it pertains to you, Mayor, and perhaps anyone going forward, is a person running for mayor in their 10th year of service, so next November, would technically be running, if they were elected as mayor and served out their term, would they be serving a 14-year term, or would they be capped at 12 as our city charter states? And in this particular case, it would be you would serve 14 years, consecutive years on city council if the mayor decided in their 10th year to run for 4 more years, or any other city council person for that matter. And those are kind of the FAQs I've received. If any council members have any questions, fire away.
All right, I don't see any hands up yet. Colleen, was there anything that you wanted to add?
Not at this time, Mayor. No, I think Reed covered everything.
Great, thank you. Council Member Millerman.
I don't have a question, but I do have a big, huge round of applause to Reed and to Colleen for helping to get this on the ballot, and for all of your work on updating the language. And I really do appreciate all of your effort. And I am like ecstatic at the tremendous support for this initiative. So anyway, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? So going forward then, Reed, our next steps will be that you'll start identifying some things that we just need to, as legislative rules, you'll come forward to us and we'll just work those as we go. There appear to be no charter changes. That's a good thing.
We have some very dedicated citizens out there that I'm sure can find an issue with something here or there, but so far so good.
Well, good. And if they come forward with that would be great. That gives us something to make sure that we're on target on this stuff. City Manager, do you have anything you want to add?
No, Mayor. I think Reed Bessing, our city attorney, covered it well. Thank you.
Great. Well, if we have nothing else on this item, I don't see anybody in council. Let's go ahead and move on to our next item. It is 7:22, and we are looking at ID number 20-285. This one is the ballot question 300, retail marijuana election results. And we're going to discuss the initiative. It did pass. So we're going to have the city attorney again, and also I think the city clerk talk to us about some stuff. I don't think we have any action tonight to take, other than that you're going to be coming forward to us with some things that we need to clean up to fix. Is that correct, Reed? Because I know we already have the taxes already in place, but there's a few things that we need to still discuss.
There'll probably be a couple things we'll ask council, and we'll talk about those tonight in terms of where council's comfort level is. I would say the plan in terms of tonight and these two particular ordinances which are presented to council is to effectuate the vote of the citizens. So what do we need to do between now and January 1st when they're allowed to start selling? What do we need to change in our ordinance to allow them to sell retail? So it's kind of a quick fix right now. The larger questions get a little bit more complicated as we deal with kind of the larger question of, does council want more than just these three? I mean, that's a big question out there. If that's council's direction that we receive at some point, then it obviously requires different types of changes than what we're trying to do in these particular ordinances. And then you get into kind of the land use issues of the various types of zoning districts in which something may be allowed. And it's a larger conversation, and it's not one that I would say the city manager or myself felt that we had enough time to get into before January 1st. So right now we're just trying to effectuate the vote of the citizens. And if I could share my screen, I'll take it away.
Give it a shot.
Mm.
So again, some of the discussion that we may have tonight then is going to be whether or not we allow the existing medical marijuana centers to sell retail, or do we expand the number of locations that would sell, and if so, what would be the requirements and restrictions as far as that goes? Let's see. And also, Reed, at some point, can you just send to us the state guidelines so that, like, I think, what do we have now in place? 2,000 square feet, and that's a city, a city ordinance, not a state?
I believe that is correct. Yeah, the city ordinance talks about no more than 2,000 square feet, with a certain amount of that being allowed for cultivation.
And does the state have any limitations? Like if it's 2,000 square feet, if they're going to have both medical and retail, they have to have the X amount of square feet. Does it address that at all, or does it have any limitations on size?
I'm sure there probably is a limitation on size. I mean, a lot of it depends on if it's for retail or for cultivation, right? But I'm not exactly sure what state law prescribes in terms of maximum square footage.
Okay, but the 2,000 feet is a city direction.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
So obviously this was a citizen initiative, a ballot question 300, which gathered enough verified signatures to make it on the ballot. It was essentially, sorry, I'm trying to take a look here. So the language was, shall existing medical marijuana centers licensees be allowed to sell retail starting January 1st? That went to the voters and it passed. Approximately 65% voted in favor and 35% voted no. As mentioned earlier, the intent of kind of what we're talking about tonight is, what do we need to do? What does the city need to do? What does city council need to do with its limited schedule, given a couple of holidays coming up, in order to clean up our existing city ordinances, one being 3-20, which talks about our medical marijuana centers within the city, as well as amending section 321, which talks about retail marijuana establishments. Essentially, it prohibits them currently. So those are the two ordinance changes, the two ordinances that need to be fixed between now and the beginning of the year. So the changes to 320, and we'll get into kind of some policies. So it's really council's direction in terms of this. But 320-1 is our medical marijuana center ordinance. And the changes that we made were somewhat limited in terms of what we needed to change. One of the changes was a clarification as it relates to buffer zones, in terms of two things, really. What a park is, and whether outside jurisdictions should affect where medical marijuana centers within our city are. So the changes that were made essentially are to put a definition of what a public park is. I will tell you specifically, we have one current medical marijuana center within the city that is technically non-conforming, depending on what your definition of a park is. And that is, I want to say it's Ascend. It's right off the corner of, not off the corner, but off of Prince and Santa Fe. It backs to the Mary Carter Greenway. So the question is that a park? And if that's a park, it's within 1,000 feet of it, and it's technically non-conforming. Going forward, not having a definition of that within our specifically within our licensing code, poses some challenges for staff in terms of other individuals coming from outside that want to see exactly where they could put a medical marijuana centers. We have these buffer zones, and we don't have clarification on a couple things. So park is one of those, so we added a definition. Now, council may not like our definition of what a park is. And essentially what we did is we removed basically a greenway or green belt and a trail as considered a park. And that allows for one of our existing medical marijuana centers to be conforming. And one of the challenges with that is if they were to apply for a retail license, one of the concerns, perhaps a legal concern, is that they're technically non-conforming. And as you know from kind of land use things, when you have a non-conforming use or a non-conforming structure, that they're fine to continue to operate that way. You know, they're grandfathered in, if you will, until you make changes, in that use, or until you make substantive changes to a property where it's no longer, you know, just a repair and maintenance. So a couple of changes were added to the medical marijuana center ordinance. They're proposed to try to clarify that. In terms of the changes to 321, that is basically the entirety of the ordinance is new. And I apologize earlier in our excitement and euphoria to get these ordinances done and submitted to council. I know there was probably some distracting text in terms of different colors and strike throughs and red lines. And so we tried to clean that up. And so apologies to anyone who went through that and was not amused. But 321 is largely a brand new ordinance. What it is, I would say a lot of it is copied from our existing 320 and moved over to 321. And then we've obviously had to add some definitions and changes to retail. So the council direction that we're requesting is, do we want to clarify and adjust the buffer zones for either MMCs or retail? So as I mentioned, staff has proposed a clarification, two clarifications really, which was one, we count the, we're worried about our own jurisdiction and not the effects of a different jurisdiction. So Inglewood, for example, the fact that they had a retail or a medical marijuana center right across the street from our boundary was not going to affect our buffer zone. That was a change that staff has proposed. But we have various buffer zones currently existing. I'm sorry, and the other one being a definition of a public park, removing the greenway and trail. So do we want to clarify or adjust the various buffer zones for MMCs or retail is one question. These are what are currently allowed within the city, the various buffer zones. And then secondly, and this is probably the larger question, doesn't have to be answered tonight, but something to think about going forward. If you want more than 3 retail marijuana facilities in the city, or are you content with seeing how these go and just kind of feeling it out from there? But as I mentioned earlier, if that's the direction council gives, then it obviously puts us back to kind of the drawing board. And granted, I will tell you, we have a lot of writing on the drawing board, so we're prepared for that. But that's pretty much what we have, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Colleen is on with us as well, and she is the guru on all the licensing aspects surrounding medical marijuana centers right now, as well as our liquor licensing.
Great, thank you, Reed. A couple questions I have. So really right now, one of the things that council is going to have to address is whether or not we remove or leave in the 2,000 square feet limitation. Is that correct?
I don't know if council needs to address that right now. I know that there are some interested persons in the marijuana advocates who have, I believe, met with at least 2 of the city council persons to give their input regarding our ordinance. I know Mr. Ralph and I and Colleen have a meeting scheduled with some of those advocates on Thursday to talk about our city ordinance. And I know that they have offered suggestions and changes that I just received this afternoon regarding some of their comments and concerns that they might have regarding what at least has been initially drafted.
So will it be the city staff, city council, or the liquor authority that approves the license?
I would say it's going to be our licensing authority ultimately who will make the approvals. We do have kind of a transfer type aspect of this in place for if an existing medical marijuana center wanted to, I guess, transfer their license or give up their license. Maybe transfer isn't the best word. Transition their license from medical to straight retail. There's no requirement in the ballot question that requires them to retain their medical marijuana license. So theoretically, one holding one of the 3 existing medical marijuana centers could give up their license and just go straight retail. They could also choose to do both, and that requires some structural changes within their business, and obviously requires them to have enough room to expand into that. But I think I'll defer to Colleen, who's much smarter than I in terms of how the licensing would.
Before we get to Councilmember Elrod Millerman, Colleen, did you want to say something?
No, I think Reed's correct. I think if we stick to the 2,000 square feet, we need to determine if that's going to be for each type of license. So should someone want to run a dual store, one side being medical and one being retail. Currently, only 2 of our licensees have space that would allow them to do that. We have one licensee that has a very small space. So my guess is they would either convert or stay medical. And as far as that, what we would recommend is that they would go through an application process. But for our 3 existing, we would initially do those as an administrative approval if they met all of the requirements. And then moving forward, depending on what council decides, those would go before the licensing authority, like any other license.
Thank you. And it is my understanding that at least 2 of them do want to do, I think, the dual. So that's something we want to probably look into here soon. Councilmember Elrod Millerman.
Thank you. I have a few things. I'll maybe take a handful now, and then I'll come back with my second line of questions. The first
Not
thing,
you.
Yes, but I won't take up everyone's time. I'll let others speak and come back to me.
Thank you.
So the first is, I think we have to be very deliberate in what it is we are needing to affect and allow as per our code, limited to what our citizens voted on. Nothing more, nothing less. That's what we gave. That's what their vote afforded our community, right? And so with that, we have to recognize, we have to stay true to that it shall allow existing medical marijuana center licensees in the city of Littleton be permitted to sell retail marijuana. So the important comment there is, or word there is, existing medical marijuana center licensees. So that's an individual that holds that license. That is a person. It's not a license. It's not the center. It's not the store. It is not the location. It's the licensee. So my ask to read is that as you look at this ordinance, that we are looking at it from that pure perspective of what was truly voted on by our citizens. And there's a couple of elements to look at there. You asked one specific direction on the parks. So I do have a position on I have a question first and a position on that. Currently, our definition for parks and open space is defined in our code, correct? Different than what's defined in the license?
I guess I would have to check. It could be within chapter 10. We do not have a specific definition for what a park or public park is within our licensing section. It could be, go ahead.
So my expectation is that we don't modify any of our definitions or use of a term differently for this license or any license for that matter than what we apply to the whole city. So when we talk about no smoking in public, in parks and open space, that intent there should be the same here. So I do not want to create an exception or a different definition or a different interpretation of what parks would mean here versus somewhere else. Regardless of whether it's non-conforming, well, then that just has to be addressed differently, right? So they can move their location or they can just say medical marijuana at this juncture. So I do not support changing the definition of park for the purpose of this license. And then the third item is the administrative approval. So I did see that in the second one, 3-21 on the process. So normally the process of issuing a license would be a public process. The purpose of the public process is in part to notify the area or the community of what use might be in their neighborhood. 2, it's to evaluate, is this a good applicant? Is there any cause for concern? And 3, the opportunity to provide conditional, based on conditions, if they're given the location or the type of use, there might be some condition that the licensing, I think it's the licensing board is what it goes through, would apply. So I do feel that this is something that should still go through a public process. It's not that it is going to go against the citizens' will. It is more of kind of our standard practice of when someone is applying for a license, that it is going through a public process. There is going to be a change in the experience within these locations. So I do think we should stay consistent with our current process, that it goes through a public process.
Thank you. Council Member Millerman, and then me.
So I have just 2 questions. One is or maybe 3. The location.
Are you trying to be Karina?
No, my questions are short.
Okay. I'm teasing Karina.
I know.
It's a compliment. It's okay.
Exactly. Sorry, Kelly.
So one question is, I know there's 3 locations in Littleton right now. One on Littleton Boulevard, one the Ascend that's on Prince and Santa Fe. Where's the third one?
On Datura, just off Littleton Boulevard, across the street from Woodlawn.
Oh, from the Savers?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So that's question 1. Question 2, the Ascend building, how many square feet is that one?
They have a little over 6,000 square feet. They're currently only using 2. They're using some of the space for office and storage, but for their medical center, they're only using 2.
Okay. Thank you. And then my third question is, if for now we decided to limit 3 retail marijuana shops tied to the existing medical marijuana stores. And if we did, if council did want to expand that going forward, would we be able to do that? Or are we just locked into the 3 now?
if council gave direction to expand retail, they certainly could do that. Right now, at a minimum, what we have to afford is the opportunity for these 3 existing MMC licensees to sell retail. And that's what we're trying to accomplish between now and the beginning of the year. If we need to go in and amend 3-21, which is the retail, to allow for 4, 5, 50, whatever the number that council feels comfortable with, we can certainly do that going forward.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Was that it, Kelly? Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, and as the ballot issue was, shall the existing medical marijuana centers that are licensed now, should they be permitted to sell? That is all we're really, that the voters voted on. Yeah, council can do more than those 3 as far as that goes. But what the citizens, almost 65% of citizens voted on was to allow the conversion of those 3 at least to do the medical marijuana. So what we have to do at this point, council, is to remove the hurdles that permit that from happening right now. Correct, Reed?
That would be the goal, yes.
Yeah, so that's really all we're here to discuss, is to remove some of the limitations that we have now. Where would you like to go next on this, Reed? Are you going to draft an ordinance for us?
Yeah, we have 2 ordinances that were included with this that we would probably bring forward with our timelines. I know that council has some interesting public hearings coming up regarding short-term rentals, our rezoning, and so we're trying to put this on a night in which is not going to overlap with some of those interesting conversations that we may have. I would say Ms. Elrod brings up probably the one question I need direction from City Council, which is adding that definition of public park. As I mentioned, there is one existing medical marijuana center, which arguably is non-conforming right now because it backs to the Mary Carter. The proposed ordinance with City Council is that we would take out kind of trailheads and trails as a definition of park. There is a definition of park in our city codes. It's in chapter 10, which is our land use code, which we've been spending a lot of time with, as council knows lately. Any changes that you make to the land use zoning code requires it going to planning commission as well as then going to city council. We just don't have time for that. So the thought was to create a definition of public park, to take out trail in that definition, to make sure that we have a conforming space and to clear up some confusion that has been given to staff in regard to interpretation. So we have Ms. Elrod, who is not in favor of that, and any other direction from council if they want us to leave that definition in or take it out.
Let's hear from Councilmember Grove, then Mayor Pro Tem.
If we leave it as is and make it consistent with the rest of the city as what I think Karina is proposing, then what happens to the non-conforming location?
That's a good question. I don't want to speculate for what Mr. Embry, the owner of that facility, would do. I would imagine he would probably be non-pleased about that decision to leave it as is. If it is indeed the interpretation, the legal interpretation that it's non-conforming, and when you allow for an additional use, which would be non-conforming, we don't allow it. And so we have that side of the coin. We also have the side of the coin of, and it's really more a policy and interpretation of, we have 65% of our registered electors wanted at least these 3 centers, licensees, to sell retail. So how do we go about accommodating the vote of the people between now and January?
And that is our task. That is our task. Okay. Anything else, Pam? No. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, Rita, excuse me, on this question, just of the definition of park, et cetera, and the facility that would mostly affect. Our starting point, I think Jerry summarized it pretty well, is to, and so did you, to effectuate the will of the voters. They've said that facility has permission to operate retail. Is it simpler? Is it possible to simply sort of grandfather that facility in rather than changing the definition of park and open space? Because obviously that definition has implications for the other facilities, and it affects other provisions of our city code. Could we do that?
That is an option. I will say, just to correct something, is that the ballot language actually talks about the existing medical marijuana center licensees. It doesn't say the existing medical marijuana centers be allowed to sell retail. So could it be inferred that some of the voters expected them at those same locations to sell it there? Perhaps that's very possible.
I think for us to take a different reading would do some pretty serious disservice to the spirit of this election. I don't think that the voters were parsing it quite that closely. I mean, I think they expected that the existing facilities would be able to operate.
Yeah, and because there is still a question out there, Mayor Pro Tem, that is there anything to prohibit a current medical marijuana center licensee from packing up shop? Colleen had mentioned there's one of the existing that is a little smaller. So in order to accommodate retail or to do dual, they may have to move. So do we want them in a part of town in which, this is really for council to make that decision, in which perhaps those persons that voted for it were really more thinking of where it should be, and then they wind, then it turns out that there's one right across the street from them.
So what about an answer to that question about grandfathering it in rather than changing the definition, or something like that?
Yeah, I'll have to bring it back to the group and our land use folks and be thoughtful on that. I have a great answer for you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Anything else, Scott?
No, thanks.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Elrod, then me.
The ballot language is pretty certain what it says. It says existing medical marijuana center licensees. It could have very well been written to say existing medical marijuana center. So it is a very slippery slope for us to try to infer or hypothesize of how an individual voted on this or what they understood it to be or not to be. What we are tasked with doing here is effectuating, I think that's the word you said, Reed, of allowing this. Now, the point of the existing location being non-conforming, it does not at all preclude that particular licensee, and this is perhaps why that term was chosen, that licensee can move the location, or that licensee can maintain that medical marijuana facility in that location and potentially open up a retail marijuana facility in another location. So it's not for us to hypothesize nor the intent of the voter and what they voted on, nor what the current licensee intent is today, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So, I still come back to the point, the request I made that we should not be modifying parks as a definition. So let's stay true to all the work that we're doing on ULUC to really kind of unscramble the ambiguities, the inconsistencies, et cetera. And, let's just do what we need to do to effectuate this vote and not start creating exceptions. If we create exceptions, then that is essentially not honoring what our voters voted on.
Okay. Thank you. We have me, and then we'll go to Mayor Pro Tem. So, Reed, there was a fourth location. Do they still hold a license?
Mayor, I'll take that one.
Thank you.
No, Green Mountain Care was our fourth location located on Prince Street, right across from the Littleton Center, and they relinquished their license in September of 2018. So we've had a vacant license for 2 years.
And now there was one on Littleton Boulevard on the north side, around about Cherokee. Is that the one you're talking about?
No, that was Mother Nature's Miracle, and she relinquished her license in late 2014, which allowed a new licensee to come in, which was Green Solutions. And they were on the frontage road of Santa Fe next to St. Nick's, which was then sold to Ascend Cannabis, which is the location in discussion as potentially non-conforming.
Okay. So we have only 3 licenses at this time.
Correct.
Okay. And again, as I read the ballot issue, even though it has the word licenses, I take it to mean that it's the current locations, the marijuana center location licensees. That's how I'm taking it. So, and again, for me, council, it's just a matter of making it possible for those 3 locations to be able to sell retail where they are right now. And we'll move to Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I agree with that, Jerry. I think, if we as a council were to try to use the definition of a park to make the facility that's most affected by that a non-conforming use, it would be required to move. I think that's a very likely result. And in that case, we're not effectuating the will of the voters, which is to allow these 3 facilities to operate retail operations. I think we'd be in that case trying to use our sort of remaining authority here, our power to regulate, to really chill their ability to do that. And I don't think that is in the spirit of the vote. So I think that, Reed, if you could just present us with some options for, allowing the 3 facilities to operate where they are without having to tweak a definition of parks and open space that has broader implications for the rest of the code. I think that would be most in the spirit with the vote and kind of the most administratively clean approach in my mind.
And let me clarify something. So I keep talking about a non-conforming use. To be perfectly fair, non-conforming use typically comes out of our land use code, which is Title 10, which is what we're making all these changes to. We don't have a use table for retail. We don't have a use table for medical marijuana centers. We typically allow, because we never updated our codes for 40 years, we've technically allowed MMCs to be in locations where a pharmacy would go. But so when I say it's a non-conforming use, it's technically not a non-conforming use. What it really is a non-conforming business license, because those buffer zones are within Chapter 3. Chapter 3-20 that talks about the 1,000 feet from a park, but yet has no definition of what a park is. Yet we've allowed that licensee to operate in that specific location. I would say that licensee probably procured a large building like that with the intent of, at some point, hopefully the city would allow for retail sales and they could fill out that space. I mean, I'll defer to Colleen on that one. She obviously knows her licensees very well as those folks interested in them.
I would agree, Reed. I think that was their intent when they first moved in there. And I would say that they moved in to that space in good faith, that it was conforming for the use, because the company that they took over for had to move from the original location there on Littleton off of Cherokee that the mayor was referencing earlier. They were told they had to find a conforming location. And based on direction that they were given by staff at that time, and this was back in 2014, they were told that the location there next to St. Nick's was conforming per our code. So when the current licensee went in, it was with the intent that at some point there might be retail and that his shop was in a conforming location.
Councilmember Elrod. I'm sorry, just one second. Scott, were you through with your questioning?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks.
cool. Karina?
I'll let Colleen and Reed resolve the conforming, non-conforming, and how that's defined. But I have to say I take real umbrage that we are inferring what the spirit of our citizens' vote was. The ballot language is clear. Every individual voted based on their understanding of that language. We cannot here at council then say, I think that's what they intended. I believe that's what they inferred. That is not for us to do in this case. In any case, for that matter, we can begin to take that position for any ballot measure that what was inferred or the spirit of it. No, there is great diligence done in explicitly writing these ballot languages, and the way a voter votes is based on this ballot language. So let us not infer or hypothesize what the spirit of it is. The language is the language is the language, and that's all it says. Please.
So, and as I said, so you're taking that to mean the current locations and limited to that?
It says licensees. It does not say a location.
So you're saying they can that licensee could pick up and move to somewhere else in the city?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right. We have Council Member Grove, then Mayor Pro Tem, then Faye.
I agree with what Scott is saying. I think we need to figure a way to maintain the park definition as is because of the implications to the rest of the code, yet find a way to allow this one non-conforming or whatever you want to call it location to offer retail if they want.
Thank you. We have Councilmember Faye.
Did you say that Mayor Pro Tem was in before I was?
He removed his hand.
Oh, he did. I would like to move this along to do the equivalent of, I know that we aren't doing the formal rules of call the question. Well, what we have going on here is the same arguments being offered again and again and again. I think we've heard them. How about if we get a, whatever we call it, of what the various council members prefer for this and finish it off.
Any other council members? Kelly, did you want to weigh in?
I would agree that we protect that, what Scott said, we protect that little piece of the park and allow us then to remain in that location. And that's it.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Faye, I moved off you kind of quick. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I don't. I want to listen to what the attorney says. I don't want council members playing attorney and overruling him. So I would like the attorney to go ahead with what he had in mind.
With that, so the question to you right now, to the city attorney then, is on the language. Are we talking about a specific locations now, or are we talking that licensee can pick up and go somewhere if allowable? Because as it is, with the exception of the one location, it's very difficult for another location within the city to be approved. You are muted.
Now, there are challenges within our existing buffering within the business areas within our city for these stores to operate. I will say right now, there is nothing that stops, say, one of these existing licensees to just go get 3 retail licenses in a different part of our city and keep their existing location. So, there is a thought that if they're not allowed to do dual, as if they want to do, that what we have done or what has been effectuated by a lack of doing so is instead of there just being 3 locations within the city to procure marijuana products, you've now potentially added 3 more. So they'll keep their medical and say, fine, if you won't let me do both, then I'll just get another location in a a vacant storefront downtown or somewhere else and start selling retail there. So, there's kind of a lot to iron out in terms of these particular ordinances, and I certainly can appreciate the unintended consequences of changes that council directs and council makes.
Great. I guess at this point, Reed, what I'd like to see is that we undo whatever is preventing the current locations from able to have the dual, if that's what they choose, and then because there's some language in there now that does prevent that. So that's what I would like to see. I'd like to hear from each council member then, just real quickly, are we just going to address it now so that existing can do dual, and then if we have an application come in, we're going to have to verify whether or not it meets within our the zoning guidelines that we currently have. Do we want to change those?
And just to clarify, it's really the licensing guidelines that we're trying to fix with this one.
In regards to whether or not it's close to a daycare, school, park, and such. That's what I'm saying. There's very limited areas, if any other areas, that they could even go to right now. All right, council, we got to give direction to our city attorney. So at this point, Reed, Mayor Pro Tem would like to weigh in, and then, first Councilmember Elrod, and then Mayor Pro Tem.
Can we just pause for a minute and ask Reed again, specifically what he's asking for direction on? I thought that
that was what I was going to ask, is for direction from Reed of what the ask is. I'm not clear of what the ask is.
Yeah, I thought Reed had invited us to sort of talk about this definition of the park issue. I wasn't trying to sort of make idle chit chat. I thought that's what Karina and I and others were talking about.
So Reed, where are we at this point for you?
Sure. So one of the directions was, should we change our buffer language? And the main buffer language was a definition of that public park, or what a park is, because we don't have a definition in there. That's proposed within 320 that was given to council. Council can say yay or nay. Don't necessarily need to do it tonight. I mean, it's there. If you tell me to take it out, I'll take it out for first reading. The other change that was made in 320, proposed change, is whether or not in our buffer zones we worry about a neighboring jurisdiction's whatever it is, whether it's a school, daycare, or whether it is another medical marijuana center. Right now, there's nothing within our code that prescribes where we should be taking those measurements from. So, as I use the example of a medical marijuana center in Inglewood, do we want that to affect where in the limited spaces within the city of Littleton we can keep ours, because we're trying to keep a 1,000-foot buffer from that. And so we've taken out that, and all we're really worrying about right now is the city of Littleton, and that's our current change in 320. Those are the two changes. So if council's okay with that, I've heard from at least 2 council members that they do not want to make a change to the definition of park. I've heard from 3. I'm not sure where Councilmember Millerman is in terms of that issue, but I'm just looking for 4 people to give me direction whether or not you're good with it or not.
Okay. Councilmember Elrod, do you want to say one last thing? Nope, you're good. Because your hand is up is why I asked that. Okay. Well, my direction for my part of whatever it adds to this is that I don't want to change the definition of park at this time. So what do we have? I'm just going to go down the list here. We have Councilmember Elrod. Are you looking to change the definition of the park? She says no. Okay, we have Councilmember Fay.
Yes.
Yes, she's a yes. We have Councilmember Grove.
No.
She's a no. We have Councilmember Millerman.
I'm really still confused. If you change, I'm sorry, don't roll your eyes. If you change the definition of park, this is going to impact the entire city? or this just impacts where Ascend is?
I can't speculate for what the licensee may want to do in the future. It changes, depending on how I can tailor language to accommodate what I think I've heard from some council members, that they want Ascend to stay where it is and not move to another area in the city.
So where are you on this one, Kelly?
I want you to keep Ascend where it is.
Okay, so you are a no. We have Mayor Pro Tem.
I think that makes me a no. I don't want to change the definition of park, but I do want that facility to be able to operate out of their current location.
You said no, but you are willing to let the current location for that one to continue. Right. Yeah, and that's okay. Cool. Reed, do you have your direction on that? It looks like.
I have some work to do. Yes.
Do you need any other direction from us?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, so your direction is to put together something that we're not changing it, but we're going to make it possible for the current location that's in question.
Understood.
Great, thank you. All right, Councilmember Grove, did you have one other?
Yeah, I mean, Reed, don't you need direction on the buffer zones, or have you got that?
I guess I could ask the question.
The neighboring jurisdictions, I thought that was the second thing you wanted from us.
Yeah, the question being, we've added a provision where we're not taking into account neighboring jurisdictions, whatever's, as it relates to where locations can be within our city. The city.
And your recommendation was not to do that. It was a no, correct?
We took, it was actually planning, a lot of these, although this is within our licensing purview within chapter 3, a lot of this is kind of land use. So one of the concerns, one of the questions that has always been there in our medical marijuana centers is, where are we calculating these buffer zones from? Is it just exclusively within our jurisdiction? Or do we want to take into account neighboring jurisdictions? Obviously, when you take into account neighboring jurisdictions, it limits substantially the locations within our city where at least in our case, a medical marijuana center could actually be. So a proposal was to clarify that and only worry about within our jurisdiction. If council doesn't like that, we can certainly go back to the way it was, or at least clarify that we want other jurisdictions, parks or schools or other medical marijuana centers or retail centers to be calculated in our buffer zone.
Which is the way it is now.
Right now, we don't have any direction. So we have been administratively interpreting it so that we do count another jurisdiction's whatever. But that's just creative interpretation.
So the question on the table is, do we want to take into account other jurisdictions as far as limitations?
Correct.
Is that
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. I'm just going to go right down the list again on this, Councilmember Elrod. I'm sorry, I missed what you're.
Okay, so sorry, I just want to make sure I understand how it's being phrased. Do we want to consider other jurisdictions in the buffering? So if there is a school across the street, we would say it's there's not enough buffering between the store that's located in Littleton and the school, so we would not accept it. If that's what we're saying here, then yes, that's what I want to.
So you do want to include other jurisdictions in the buffering?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we'll go to Councilmember Fay.
No.
Councilmember Grove.
Yes.
Councilmember Millerman.
Yes.
One more time. Yes, you were a yes, thumbs up. All right, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I think we need to consider neighboring jurisdictions, but I have a quick question for Reed, which is, if we do that, are these stores going to have to move?
No.
Then yes, I want to consider neighboring jurisdictions.
And that's where I am too. So I think you have direction on that item as well. Doesn't affect any of the current ones though, does it? The current locations, the three.
Not in their current locations, no.
Right, at the current locations. All right, cool. What other item are you looking for some clarity or direction on?
I think I got it. I think we have enough information to be able to clean up the two existing ordinances. I'll meet with Carl Onsager and Ashley Augustine, as well as Colleen, and we'll kind of brainstorm how we can effectuate at least what I've heard as it relates to one of our establishments to keep them in their location, but to not monkey around with park definitions. So got it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. So you have your both the items squared away, and one of them was, I'm trying to think. What was the first one? I'm sorry. What was the first direction?
The two items we're asking for direction of is a definition defining what a park is.
That's what it was, parks. Yeah. So you have your direction on the parks and the direction on other jurisdictions. With that, right. I think we're through with that item. Any other direction? Any other discussion on that? Councilmember Elrod?
I would, and I'm not asking for discussion. We can obviously do that at the public hearing, but one of the things that we've heard from marijuana industry is changing up some of the proposed hours. Currently, what we have is just, I think it's 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., something along those lines for our hours of operation. And you'll probably hear from individuals wanting to extend those hours. And so all that we can talk about during the public hearing process. But, the hours of operation are really the administrative type provisions that our council can go ahead and legislate on. So
yes,
throwing that out there, we'll have some things to talk about as it relates to retail.
Right. Councilmember Elrod, then the Mayor Pro Tem.
So the other item I had brought up is that we're approving this as administrative. We're issuing a retail marijuana license as administrative instead of a public process that we would normally do for medical marijuana license. So I think that one is worth discussing here as a council. Again, from the perspective of the transparency, public engagement, everything we continue to advocate for. This is another type of use. Maybe it's not specifically another type of use, but it's a different type of license that will be performing in a different way, which has different impacts to a particular neighborhood or community. So I do think this warrants a public process.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, do you, Mayor, or Reed, have any response to that? Because I was going to discuss something else.
Oh, Reed, did you want to have any reply for Karina?
So currently, it's shall existing medical marijuana center licensees be allowed to sell retail. And in terms of the licensing process to obtain a retail license or to do dual, I believe, and I guess I'm gonna stare anxiously at my screen for Colleen to jump in, how that process is occurring for these licensees to go get their retail license, the existing licensees to get their retail license.
We currently don't have that process ironed out yet. We've reached out to neighboring jurisdictions who recently have adopted retail in addition to, and by and large, they've done the retail license administratively, just because of the background and everything that a medical marijuana center has to go through, not only during their initial application process, but during their renewal process. The other thing to keep in mind with marijuana licenses is while a brand new application does require a public hearing, the needs and desires of the neighborhood are not considered when making a determination, and that's under state statute. So the needs and the neighborhood are allowed to voice concerns and all of those things, but none of that is taken into consideration when approving a license. The licensing authority is looking at very specific items under state statute. Is the person or persons applying eligible to hold that license? Is that facility in a conforming location? Does it meet zoning? All of those kinds of things. And so, in my opinion, if we were to ask these existing licensees who now want to go to retail and either convert or run dual to go through an entire process, this would take us well into January, February, and they would not be selling retail on January 1, as prescribed by the ballot question.
Reed?
No, I would agree with Colleen. So, technically the way that we're going to be doing this, or at least the way we plan to do it, is kind of administratively. Maybe it's the licensing authority who signs off on it, but it's not a public hearing process per se. Essentially, they're going in, they're paying their fee to have their retail. They're complying with, whatever the application process and ensuring that they haven't made any falsehoods in the application. And the licensing authority is just going to probably approve those in order to effectuate the vote to allow for these MMCs, existing MMC licensees, to sell by January 1st. I agree with Colleen that this is the way that we need to go about doing it.
Great. All right. Scott, you did have a question. Do you still have that question?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Reed, I thought one of the things you wanted council to talk about was whether we wanted more than 3 licenses. I don't. I think I'm content with 3. If I had to guess, I'd say most of the council's going to say the same thing. We could just dispense with that right now rather than save it for later.
Is there anyone on council would like to see more than the 3? I don't see anybody motioning for that. So I think that answers that, Scott. So thanks for putting that out there. Appreciate it. We have Councilmember Elrod, then Grove.
I have a follow-up to Reed and Colleen's comment. So just to want to make sure I understood correctly then. So one of the things that the licensing authority goes through is for the application and investigation with the police department, with community development. They incorporate any findings to good moral character, et cetera. So are we getting this in other ways? So if not through the public application process, are we getting this assurance in other ways? Maybe it's the annual licensing renewal process?
Yes. So upon initial application, licensees are required to be fingerprinted through CBI and FBI. And then annually, when they renew their license, those badge holders go through another FBI background check. They are vetted for personal income taxes, sales taxes, child support, all of those kinds of things. So if they've made a misstep anywhere during that calendar year, it's going to be reflected.
Great, thank you. And all of that, Colleen, is a part of what the license authority is looking at to make sure they all those check marks have been made.
Correct.
Okay, cool. Thank you. We have Councilmember Grove, and then maybe we can wrap this thing up.
Unclear about the hours. Do we need to give input, or that's the public, or that's staff? Where are we on that?
You don't need to give input on that now. We can do that at the public hearing.
Great, thank you. All righty. Okay, Reed, you've got your direction on the parks and also the other jurisdictions. I think that's a good start at least. So when something comes back to us again, we'll have another chance. Great. Anything else? I don't know. I'm afraid to ask. All right, cool. Let's move on to our reports, and if we can start with the city manager or city attorney first, and then we'll go to the city manager.
Great.
You always have your time taken, and you always complain.
Thank you. So I am gonna probably piggyback on some of Mark's comments that he's going to make. The one update I will give to council, I shared with them in an email last week, is that the district court in Arapahoe County ruled in the city's favor in the Berger Investments v. City of Littleton and dismissed their case against the city. This was a memory care facility, I think over in the South Park area, that came about, that our city council granted a PD amendment that was challenged by a neighboring property owner, essentially saying that our city council did not apply the correct criteria. And this case has been going on since 2017 and has made it up to the Court of Appeals and back down to the district court. And last week we received a favorable ruling in that case. But other than that, I don't have anything else to report. Thank you.
All right, city manager, please.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I wanted to provide council and the community a little bit of an update here on COVID-19, and I'm afraid I don't have good news, so I'll just tell you that right up front. There's two kind of issues I want to comment on, one of which is the meeting that myself and the mayor attended last night with our counterparts throughout the county, plus the county commissioners and county staff. And we were specifically talking about the state's intent to move us to level 3 orange high risk. And I also want to come back and talk a little bit about, we've had a COVID outbreak within the City of Littleton organization itself, and I want to touch on that. So first, back to the meeting last night. This is no surprise to certainly any of the council. We've been sharing information here almost every day again. The rate of increase in COVID here throughout the state, certainly in Arapahoe County, has been pretty alarming. And so we are moving to level 3 tomorrow at 5 p.m. And I will let Reed kind of comment on the specifics of that. But before I do, I just want to share a little bit about what's going on within the organization. We have been in contact with Tri-County Health. We've had up to 10 employees who now have been confirmed to have COVID. They are in a various departments within Public Works, the courts, and the city manager's office. And so we've been taking the appropriate steps at the suggestion, certainly of Tri-County Health, on how to manage all that. We believe they've been dispersed enough so that we've got a pretty good handle on certainly isolating the employees and working with them to protect themselves and their families, and certainly the testing and everything else that kind of follows on that. Facilities has been pretty diligent in coming in and cleaning police cars, the facility, and the like. And so all of this has happened in just a matter of a few days. I think it highlights the fact that this is highly contagious, and we have certainly done our best here to communicate to our employees kind of the status of this. We have another meeting of the leadership team here tomorrow afternoon to kind of talk about all the steps we're taking and making sure that we are fully compliant here with Tri-County Health, and certainly communicating as clearly as we can with our employees and our community. So we've isolated certainly the courts. Reed may want to touch on that again. The police is at a point where it really is not impacting the level of service. Remember, we've got close to 80 employees within the police department. And so the 6 or 7 that we've had test positive does not pose an impact on staffing. We've been able to kind of manage that and move staffing in different positions. We have all sorts of contingency plans in every single department, and we're certainly looking at those. Take police as an example. We are nowhere near any kind of concern here of any measurable amount as far as staffing is concerned. Certainly for employee health, we are. Okay, so that is kind of a quick summary of what's going on in the organization. And I want to maybe turn it over to Reed to talk a little bit about what level 3 means in our community. And then I want to come back after he's done and just share one other comment about where I think this is going here on a regional basis. So with that, Reed, maybe you can cover some of the specifics.
Yeah, and I don't know if you mentioned it, Mark, and I apologize if you did, but One of the things that we did immediately as an organization is we notified Tri-County Health Department. Anytime that you have 2 or more, it's considered an outbreak, if you will. So we have filled out the necessary paperwork with Tri-County Health Department, who will then go about getting information so we can start any sort of contact tracing with those individuals who may have been in contact with anyone else. I will tell you, with our municipal court, we're basically going to be continuing all the court cases through, I want to say, almost the end of this month. And so most of those will be reset. We'll then start going to remote as we look into dialing into stage 3. Mark had mentioned stage 3, and let me see if I can share with you what stage 3 essentially means. Obviously, it's a reduction in capacity of a lot of our establishments, who had been operating at essentially 50% capacity. I know that we had a variance in place before we went to stage 2, but as you can see, and I apologize if this isn't big enough, but what we're really going to see across the board with most of our businesses, including offices, restaurants, is going down to a 25% capacity with a maximum of 50 people. We were used to going at 50% capacity or 100 people. So this is definitely going to impact a lot of our businesses. Looking at Tri-County's current positivity rate, it is not good. Just looking at a 3-day rolling average, Adams County is at 19.1 positivity rate. Douglas County, 14.3 positivity rate. And Arapahoe is 13.7. So the metrics, and there's no real set in stone for when you go to the stay at home, i.e. don't come into work, don't go to certain businesses, only those essential services are open. One of the things in that scale is a 15% positivity rate. That's what keeps you from going into that stage 4, that stay at home. As you can see, and this is only a 3-day moving average. What the state takes into account, what CDPHE and TCHD take into account, is a 14-day. But obviously, the trend has been going up in terms of what we're seeing. And there is a real fear, and I'll turn it back to Mark, who can expound upon what he's hearing kind of on a regional basis of going to that stage 4, that stay at home. So Mark, maybe you can add to that.
Yeah, I think also, by the way, I received a letter from the governor's office this afternoon addressed to all local governments in the state, asking that those within the orange and red levels actually look at requiring your employees to work from home as much as possible, except for those in critical essential service positions. So the leadership team is going to be looking at that here tomorrow as well. So I think obviously the big question is, where do we think this is going? We, in the meeting last night, we did have a representative from the state, the Colorado Department of Health and Environment. It's clear that the state, the governor's office, is looking at trying to do everything possible without shutting down the state once again. I think we've learned some lessons. This is my view, listening to the information and the discussion. I think we're trying to protect, obviously, the capacity of the hospitals. And so myself, other city managers, certainly in the county, and the county commissioners, mayors, we're going to be, in the weeks to come, probably looking at some different alternatives, doing everything we can to keep businesses open and protect the capacity of hospitals. That will be hard. I think there's also been some discussion, since we're kind of at this level here throughout the metro area, is that perhaps there might be some kind of a regional approach to some of these state health orders. So that discussion has been ongoing. So I wouldn't be surprised that perhaps we hear more of that here in the coming weeks about how we might approach this more in a metro-wide area. I'm afraid this is not good news. I think the bottom line is that this is probably, in my view, the most critical point in this epidemic, this pandemic here for our state. And I think that we must do everything we can to wear a mask, to wash our hands, and the social distancing becomes just absolutely paramount right now. Otherwise, if we can't turn the curb curve on this thing, we are going to be faced with some pretty difficult decisions here in the weeks to come. So I'm sorry that's not really great news, but I think in the next couple of weeks, we'll obviously be back and sharing with you more information as it comes out of the kind of the countywide discussion. Be happy to answer any questions if the council's got them.
I don't see any questions, Mark. I think you burned us out.
I'm sorry.
Thank you for the information. Reed, were you, did you want to add anything else to Mark?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Great, thank you. All right, council, we got a little bit done tonight. Our next meeting is going to be Tuesday, November 17th, 6:30. I guess we'll see you all then. With that, it is 8:35 and we are adjourned. Have a good night.